Do not even get me started on the Nick Kyprios tweets that have been going out there and talking about a JT Miller trade. In this video, what I wanted to do was dive into a retrospective blast to the past. We are going all Marty McGuire back into the future here for ya. Marty McGuire? Nah, Marty McFly. That's the wrong Marty. I just totally screwed that up. Marty! Alex! Okay, let's go over to a tweet made by Big Head Hockey from earlier this year. November 17th, 2024. The reason this tweet was made is because of a few guys that were going out there and scoring and doing their thing. Because back in February of 2024, Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks were not close on a contract extension. The Canucks tried to protect their losses by shopping Pettersson to Carolina, where the alleged package was to Vancouver, Martin Necas, Brett Pesce, and draft picks to Carolina, Elias Pettersson. 9 months later, how are we feeling about this alternate dimension? Now, this tweet was very baity. It was huge bait back in November of 2024 because the guy that Vancouver would have gotten in exchange, Martin Necas, was playing very well. But I wanted to revisit this kind of rejected trade by Vancouver and Carolina, which involved Elias Pettersson, because when you think about these assets in hindsight, look, I get it. Patrick Allvin, Jim Rutherford, they've got their guy in Elias Pettersson. They've got a top-tier superstar, a young guy in the National Hockey League who had scored 100 points before he was 25. There's so much to like about Elias Pettersson and his overall profile. But when it comes to the trade value, that was always going to be an issue about a Pettersson trade. Patrick Allvin and Rutherford, they know PD is worth a lot, so they weren't just going to give him up for anybody. Never going to give you up. Never going to let you down. Okay, we got to stop with the references. By the way, this video is sponsored by ExpressVPN, so if you do need a VPN, go out there and check out the first link in the description. But Allvin and Rutherford were never able to get a Pettersson trade done because all the packages in exchange were never really fitting. And Martin Necas, back in February of last year, was in a pretty rough spot with Carolina. He needed a contract extension himself, and there was an entire standoff going down. He wasn't really getting much ice time, he wasn't really getting any minutes, 53 points in 77 games played, a decline from the 71-point season he had last year. We can talk about his point production this year, but we're going to wait a little bit to talk about that. But last season, Martin Necas was dethroned from that first-line spot to Seth Jarvis. He wasn't given much power play time. He was really going through a struggle in terms of his deployment and his on-ice productivity. So last year, when this Martin Necas for Elias Pettersson trade was proposed, a lot of people were saying, hey, this is Vancouver getting fleeced. EP40 is a 100-point guy. Martin Necas stinks. He's going down the drain. And maybe it was kind of unfair to say that because Elias Pettersson was also declining in point production in 2024, but Martin Necas was seen as a guy that was more so of a scrap pickup than an Elias Pettersson was. And that was always the sentiment about this trade idea, even when you consider some of the extra assets involved. Brett Pesce, I just gotta say here, he's been very good in New Jersey ever since being acquired there from Carolina. They've been playing him with Luke Hughes. He's been a huge stabilizing force for that defense pairing. Pesce has been one of the main attributes as to why Luke Hughes has excelled so much in the National Hockey League this year. Look, Pesce only has 6 points in 32 games, but he gets 20 minutes a night. He's playing with one of the best young defensemen in the National Hockey League, and he excels in making Hughes look great. I gotta say this right here. Brett Pesce, as a right-handed D-man, 6'3", 205, $5.5 million a year. If the Vancouver Canucks had this guy instead of Myers and Desharnais, they would be coming out laughing. Seriously. Anyways, when you think about Brett Pesce going over, that obviously is a huge pickup the Vancouver Canucks could have used right now, and maybe even so much to the point that it could have been coming at the extent of Elias Pettersson going to Carolina. But if you talk about Martin Necas, this is where things get really weird when you revisit this trade idea, because right now, Martin Necas has 45 points in 37 games. He is on pace for 100 points on the year. He absolutely exploded, and we already made a few videos this season talking about how Martin Necas took over the league. He was one of the top scorers, if not the top scorer, earlier on in the season. But you might already be seeing it on your screen right here. Martin Necas in his last 5 games only has 1 assist. In his last 10 games, he's only got 3 assists. In fact, if you go over to his game log, the guy has only scored 1 point in however many games it's been. The guy's splits look terrible. To start out the year, Martin Necas had a long freaking point streak, which saw him put up 2 4-point games, another few 3-point games, even more 2-point games, and then of course the individual games with points. He was dominant. To open up the 2024-2025 season, Martin Necas made everybody, Buffalo, Montreal, Vancouver, look like fools for not trading for this guy. But it's gotten so bad to the point that now, if you take a look at this fantasy league that I'm in, this is just one of the many fantasy leagues that I'm in. Martin Necas is a free agent in 7 out of the 8 freaking fantasy leagues that I am a participant of, and he's one of the top-ranked guys here. I mean, you go over to his game log, take a look at this, man. All the pointless games as of late, the guy hasn't been scoring much. He is still the 28th ranked player in the regular Yahoo point production leagues, but that number is significantly falling ever since the turn of the past 2 months, pretty much. The guy stopped scoring. And so while you can look at a trade idea like this and say that Vancouver would have been much better if they got Necas because he started out the year super hot, and Pesce because he's a great right-handed defenseman for Elias Pettersson, at the same time, this is kind of the tail of the tape when it comes to trade ideas, ups and downs, ebbs and flows. Elias Pettersson could come back to Vancouver and start popping off, and nobody's going to be talking about trading him anymore. But because this Miller-Petey stuff has gotten so big, and because this tweet went out there and started talking about the idea of a Pettersson trade from February, you have a lot of people discussing what hypotheticals could have been, what they would have been, what they could have done for the organizations involved. I will say it's a tongue-in-cheek tweet made by Big Head Hockey, because back in this time frame, Martin Necas was lighting the lamp on fire in the NHL, so maybe it's a little bit unfair to look at the trade in this sort of a lens. Oh yeah, look at that, Pettersson's struggling, but Necas is so good, and Brett Pesce is a top defenseman in New Jersey. Obviously, it's a shoulda, coulda, woulda trade scenario for Vancouver, right? A few months later, though, things are looking a little bit different. Pesce is still great. Necas, though, kind of fell off a cliff. Very unfortunate to see out of him. I hope that he's fully able to get back up to speed and start producing at a 140-plus point pace like he was earlier on in the season. If he gets 100, that still would be a total career high shattered. But at the same time, I mean, to see him go from what was a 130, 140-plus point pace to getting only 1 point in his last however many games, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games, it's totally a divergence, and maybe even as bad as the Elias Pettersson divergence from the 100-point season to what we're seeing now. But anyways, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about this failed Elias Pettersson trade to Carolina for Martin Necas, Brett Pesce, and a few draft picks. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.